They locked me out in the cold. I exposed their secrets. Then they tried to erase my existence. What would you do? Months had passed since the trial, but I still felt its echo in everything I did. I'd walk into a room and for a split second I'd flinch, expecting cold eyes, whispered rumors, or worse, silence filled with judgment. My body was still in survival mode, long after the danger had passed, but then I'd breathe. Remind myself, you're safe now. You made it out. You're not that girl anymore. My parents were in prison 5 years each. No parole for at least 3. For most people, that might feel like the end. For me, it was a beginning, wrapped in the ashes of everything I'd endured. It didn't feel like a win, not at first. It felt strange, quiet, like the aftermath of a storm where the damage was still being counted. These were the same people who had once held every piece of my life in their hands, the ones who had locked me outside as a child during brutal winters, who'd frozen not just my skin but my ability to trust, to rest, to breathe freely. They tracked me across state lines, hacked into my email, planted lies that turned even friends into skeptics. They watched, manipulated, twisted everything until I doubted myself more than I doubted them. And now they were sitting in cells, miles away, powerless in every way they had once wielded control. They finally faced the consequences, every last one. The physical abuse, the psychological torment, the coordinated blackmail of my classmates, the smear campaigns they launched to paint me as unstable, the forged emails, the anonymous threats, even the photo of my grandmother with that vile message. This wasn't just justice. It was recognition. It was the world finally looking me in the eye and saying, we believe you. They were wrong. You are not the villain of the story. The courtroom had become something I never expected, a sanctuary of truth, not just a place to expose what had happened, but a space where I reclaimed my voice. Each testimony, each document, each tear, it was like pulling pieces of myself back from the wreckage. But healing is messier than justice. It doesn't come with closing arguments or verdicts. It creeps in slowly, through small acts of living, through the nights when you don't flinch, and the mornings when you wake up and realize for once you aren't afraid, through conversations where you no longer feel the need to defend yourself, through simple things like shopping without watching your back, or hearing your phone buzz without your stomach dropping. The lies they spread still floated across the internet like pollution. Their website full of doctored photos and manipulated stories still existed, poison in digital form. We launched a countersite, filled with the truth, verified screenshots, recorded voicemails, time-stamped photos, statements from the students they had blackmailed. But even truth can be slow and quiet while lies scream for attention. The law firm that had secretly funded my parents' crusade was unraveling under a federal probe. Thanks to Tyler's digging, their shady practices were exposed, one by one. Their damage spanned more than just me. Dozens of others had suffered through their tactics. But still no one had officially shut them down yet. They were limping, but not gone, a reminder that evil doesn't always collapse in one blow. Sometimes it rots from the inside first, eating its own foundation until there's nothing left but dust and shame. Still, something inside me had shifted. I no longer checked every lock before bed. I no longer flinched at the sound of a text message. I could sleep. I could smile. I could laugh without guilt clutching my throat. Some days I even caught myself dreaming again of futures not defined by fear or defense, of having a home, a career, maybe even a family of my own. One day, something stable, something earned. I wasn't just unlearning pain, I was learning peace. There was one moment that still plays in my head like a soft song. I was at a cafe, studying alone, when a child at the next table dropped their drink. The sound startled me, but I didn't flinch. Instead, I helped them clean it up. Their mother thanked me, and that was it. No suspicious glances, no whispers, just a simple human interaction. I walked home in tears, not from sadness, but from the realization that I could live like this, that normal didn't have to feel like a battlefield. I changed my major to pre-law with a focus on cybersecurity. I'd been forced to learn the hard way how vulnerable we all are in the digital age, but instead of letting it haunt me, I decided to turn it into purpose. I didn't just want to protect myself, I wanted to protect others. Anyone who had been stalked, doxxed, gaslighted, or threatened by the people who should have protected them. Because I knew firsthand what it was like to scream for help into silence. And I knew how to turn that silence into strength. I didn't want revenge. I wanted reform. I didn't want silence. I wanted safety. Dr. McCatherine, the chemistry professor who stood by me even when the lies felt louder than truth, wrote a letter of recommendation that made me cry when I first read it. Her resilience under targeted digital and psychological harassment isn't just inspiring, it's a call to action. Our legal system needs voices like hers, voices that carry both wisdom and scars. Meanwhile, Tyler helped me vanish online. He turned my digital identity into something nearly untouchable. Two-factor authentication, VPNs, metadata scrubbing, secure logins, hidden histories. It wasn't about paranoia, it was about control. About reclaiming the power I'd once lost. Now, even if they searched for me online, they'd find only what I allowed them to find. I became invisible by design, visible only by choice. Camila, always the heart in our trio, started a support group at her university for students hurt by family-based harassment. Within the first month, over 40 students showed up. Their stories weren't always as extreme as mine, but the pain was the same. Validation matters. Community matters, and for the first time, I didn't feel alone in the echoes of my experience. We created a network, a haven, where voices that had been silenced for too long were finally heard. Where survivors weren't just survivors, they were seen, heard, empowered. And my grandmother, she moved into a retirement community she called her castle, complete with armed guards, ID check-ins, and high fences. She joked about it, sipping morning tea in a pink robe while watching the sunrise. But beneath the laughter, there was peace. She was safe now. We both were. She even started gardening again. Said it made her feel like things could grow again even after so much rot. She planted roses. Said they reminded her of me, soft to look at, impossible to crush. Sometimes I'd still step outside at night, not to test myself, not to punish myself, but to remember, to feel the wind on my skin and whisper, you didn't break me. Because even if I couldn't physically feel cold anymore, I could feel strength. That lack of cold sensation, that trauma-induced condition. The doctors called adaptive response wasn't just a symptom, it was a scar, a marker of survival. Proof that the worst didn't win, that I adapted. I didn't just survive the cold, I became immune to it. My body learned to survive long before the rest of the world gave me permission to heal. The world hadn't gone quiet, but I'd learned how to move through the noise with armor stitched from truth and resilience. As for my parents, the last time I saw them was during sentencing. Orange jumpsuits, shackles. They looked smaller than I remembered, not in size, but in presence. Once they were giants in my world. Now they were just people, broken people, dangerous people. My father stared at the floor. My mother locked eyes with me, her expression twisted with hate. No apology, no acknowledgement of the pain they caused, only bitterness. Only the hollow glare of someone who had lost the war and didn't understand why. But they didn't have to understand, they didn't have to approve of who I'd become. Because I wasn't their puppet anymore, I wasn't their project. I was the cold girl who walked through fire and ice and came out the other side alive, stronger, sharper, made of scars and steel and truth. And now I was just getting started.